Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to show you the damage that was caused to my garden by Storm Floris that we had recently. So the storms that we had here, they didn't get up to the really high levels of wind that you had in some areas. Some areas got over 120 miles an hour, mainly on the mountain tops, just a few miles away from here. But we had wind speeds over 70 miles an hour. It was very damaging. Loads of trees around my town were destroyed. Lots of roads were closed. It was really quite damaging. Normally we're quite used to winds at that speed, but normally it's in the winter time when all the trees have lost their leaves and all the herbaceous plants are underground dormant. So when we have those winds in winter, it doesn't normally cause too much damage, but when we have those winds in August, in the middle of summer, it causes a huge amount of damage because there's all that extra surface area for the trees to catch the wind, and also the herbaceous plants can get flattened. So here in my garden, strong winds in winter don't normally cause any damage because most of my plants are herbaceous. But unfortunately, because it was middle of summer, there's been quite a bit of damage. Luckily not as bad as I thought it might be. I think because it was a southerly wind and a southwesterly wind, so that means my garden's a bit more sheltered. I've got a hedge behind you in the camera, and I've got in my front garden there's another hedge, and also the house as well that protects it. So luckily it was protected from the worst of the winds, but it was still quite badly damaged. So this is the tropical garden. Luckily, I don't think there's been any casualties at all, not complete fatalities anyway, in the tropical garden. You can see the banana leaves have been shredded. Now, some of these I did pre-shred myself to try and protect them a bit from the wind, but a lot of these shreds are just from the wind itself. And that's a good thing. What it does is the banana leaf rips so it doesn't catch the wind like a sail, and then it's more likely to survive. So this one has survived pretty well. There's only one broken leaf down the bottom here. The rest of the leaves are just shredded, and if they're shredded they can still photosynthesize and provide energy for the plant, so there's very little damage to the actual plant. When it's shredded it just changes the appearance. But when it's got broken leaves, such as this plant at the back, that does cause problems because they can no longer fully photosynthesize using this leaf because it's disrupted the sap flow, and so that will weaken it. So the bananas, as I say, not too bad. I've got 3 different types of Sequomensis that I all grew from seed. The one at the back is the one that is the least strong to wind. You can see it's actually got a new leaf that's just come out in the last couple of days, and that's looking quite nice because it hasn't been ripped yet. But these leaves are quite floppy on this one, and these are quite easily ripped off at the stem. So this one has lost some at the stem level. Now, another thing to note with the winds is we had two really bad days of the stormy conditions. Of winds above 50 miles an hour, it's peaking over 70. But then we had a whole week of winds around 40 miles an hour, which continued to cause further damage. So it wasn't just the initial storm, it was that really windy spell afterwards. So as I was saying, most of the bananas have survived, just shredded leaves. All the plants on the ground level, they're all fine. They're more sheltered because they're near the ground. Now, the begonias did look a little bit windswept, but they've actually perked up now, and so it wasn't any major damage. They're just kind of leaning because of the wind, and they've come back upright, so they're looking fine. So as I say, here in the back, not too much damage. There is a bit of damage further back, though, on my tree dahlia here. It's starting to recover now. It's actually recovering surprisingly quickly. It's only been a week and 2 days since the storm, and you can see there lots of new growth coming on it. So luckily only 1 or 2 branches snapped on that. The rest is fine. So that's the tropical bed. I'll show you the front garden, which hasn't fared quite as well, unfortunately. So this is the front garden. As you can see, it's not fared quite as well, but it has survived surprisingly well. So what I did is a couple of things to prepare the garden. I cut off all the flower hedge on my dahlias, so all of these have grown in the last week since the storm has been here. That's to reduce the wind catching it. I also did the same with my roses, but as you can see, they've come back just fine. 1 or 2 branches snapped off on the roses, not too much damage. We've got one down here actually. It's just completely snapped off, some of the longer ones, so I need to tidy them up. Also, this area was quite badly damaged by the wind, I think because of this location. So there's a bit of a dip in my hedge at this end. It's further away from the house and the hedge, and so the wind kind of came over and it seemed to come down in this area. So 2 of my dahlias are down. Now, they haven't shriveled up, so I don't think the stem's completely snapped. What I'll do at the end of this video is I will pull them back upright, restake them, and hopefully they'll stay in that position. It doesn't snap them as I pull them up, so we can still get the nice blooms. But the other dahlias are all looking good. This one here, it kind of got a bit looser, and one of the stems is shriveling up, so this one has actually snapped off at the base. So I'll need to remove this one stem. But apart from that one stem, the rest of it's looking quite good. So I'm quite happy that my main big dahlia has survived. What I did with all the dahlias is I tied them up with a bit of twine. So instead of just having lots of individual stems, they were kind of bunched together. That gives them a lot more strength. The analogy of like I think it's the old Chinese proverb where they break one arrow easily, but you have a bundle of arrows, it's possible to break. So I did that with them, and I put a bamboo stake in as well, but my bamboo stakes weren't really deep enough or strong enough, so that's why these two fell over, but it did protect the rest of them, which is great. The other damage I got was my banana tree here. So this was my really big banana tree. It was probably about 3 meters in height. Unfortunately, it snapped off completely. What I need to do now is cut it off at the base, let it regrow. All its babies and its pups that are coming up from the base though, they're looking pretty good, so I'm quite happy with that. That's survived. No, not too much damage with that, just shredded leaves. And then with this banana tree as well, it's just got shredded leaves and it's got three broken leaves. So this one has sustained quite a bit of damage, but it was quite strong and robust at the time that the storm came. So I'm hoping it's going to recover and it's going to come through quite well. And then we've also got another dahlia down here. I didn't tie this one up because I didn't have time to tie up this dahlia, so it's collapsed, but it's still green, it hasn't shriveled up, so hopefully I can restore that. And then we've got a couple more snapped branches on these roses back here as well. Now the biggest loss in this garden was not a complete loss, are these two trees here. These are my laburnum trees. Unfortunately, the laburnum trees are now loose at the roots. I've done an emergency stake and I already had a rope on it before the storm came. So those emergency stakes have kept them from falling over completely. But what I need to do is I need to reduce the size of the canopy. I need to give them really strong, solid stakes so there's not any movement at all in the root system, and then give them time to re-establish the root system and become firm in the ground again. So I did this previously with a eucalyptus tree in my parents' garden. I made a whole video about it if you want to see how I did that. But that one re-established in the ground, and when Storm Floris came last week, it stood firm and it didn't blow over at all, and it's now storm-proof again. So that's all I need to do for now. So this is the garden, as I say, quite badly wind damaged, not as bad as I was fearing it would be. Luckily it survived most of the storm damage. I'm just going to tie up my dahlias now, do a bit of tidying around, and hopefully we don't get any more bad storms for the rest of the season. So this week at least we're going to get another heat wave. It's now August and temperatures start to cool down here in Scotland, but it looks like we're going to get another nice heat wave. That should really help the tropicals in the back to grow, and also my dahlias and other plants in the front and my bedding plants. So I'll put down another feed. This will be the last feed of the season, and hopefully we'll get some more hot weather before the summer's out, and we should get some more growth, and I'll give you guys a tour of the garden right at the end of the season. So I thought I'd also show you some of the damage that's occurred here in my parents' garden. So unlike my garden, this isn't in a town, this is right on the edge of the north coast near the sea. And it's just a very small village, just really a street. So there's not much around here to really protect from the wind. It's also 30 meters up a cliff and very few trees in the area, unlike my area where we've got lots of trees in my town. So the winds that came through here, these might have been closer to 100 miles an hour winds. Fortunately, the polytunnel over there did survive. There's a big rip in it, and I thought it was going to be lost, but it did actually survive the storms. But here, the rest of the garden has been pretty much devastation, not like my garden where it was just a bit of damage. So all the poppies that were flowering nicely have been completely blown over and killed. You can see them over there as well. The vast majority of sunflowers have been destroyed. We've got a few here that have just about survived and one over there, but there was a lot more dosha throughout the garden. They've all been flattened. The sweet corn here, we don't normally grow it outside, but we thought we'd try this year as our summers have been getting hotter. But this has been flattened, and I don't think we're going to really get a harvest from that. The eucalyptus has survived. This is the tree that I had mentioned previously that I had secured, that had fallen over, and I managed to re-self-right it and get it to root again. And this has survived the storm without any kind of root rock or anything, so the roots are now nicely established. But you can see the very top new shoots have all been fried by the wind, and that's a common theme in all the trees around here. The western side of all the trees, all the leaves have become really crispy and dried up from the wind burn, and on the other side of the tree where it's sheltered, the leaves are still healthy. So some trees have been hit worse than others. The problem was the strongest winds came just before the rain hit, and we had really sunny warm weather, about 21 degrees, but really, really strong winds without any rain. So that low humidity with this really strong winds have dried out the leaves, and that's what's caused a lot of damage in this garden. So as I say, crisped up a lot of the leaves. Same on the willow. I'll show you a short video now that my mum took. It's very low quality, but you'll see, get a sense of how much the willow was whipping around. It almost looks like string being blown around by the wind. It was really just whipping all over the place. And that's why it's lost all its top leaves. Amazingly, the lower leaves have survived, so that's really good. It's just the younger leaves that were a bit softer that have been ripped off. I think because they do bend with the wind, the individual leaves don't get quite as much exposure to the winds as if the tree was rigid. So other damage, all the potatoes are completely flattened, but they're nearly ready for harvesting anyway, so that's not a big loss. What has been quite badly damaged is this section over here, and this here. This is all our Jerusalem artichokes. Now, luckily most haven't fallen over, most are still standing, but you can see all the leaves are crisped up. It's really not doing well. So these, unfortunately, is probably going to really set back the crop this year, especially as they put on most of their top growth over the summer, and then they really focus on their roots for the last few weeks of summer. So we'll probably have a much reduced yield on our Jerusalem artichokes this year, unfortunately. And then other things, we've got nasturtiums over here, the leaves are all fried on them. And then some plants like this one right at the back, we got a buddleia. The leaves have been completely stripped off the buddleia, and there's not many leaves left in that at all. So quite a lot of damage here. Luckily, the greenhouse and the polytunnel have survived, and there's no trees down in this garden. All the trees that are in this garden are used to extremely high wind levels, so they're all kind of short and stocky with very thick trunks. You can see the eucalyptus, for example, for the height of it. Eucalyptus normally has quite a thin, slender stem for the height that they grow, but this one has got quite a thick stem as it's kind of resisted the wind, and it's grown much shorter and stockier because of that. So that's it for the update in my parents' garden, just to show you the damage. As I say, lots of leaves crisped up, no trees down luckily, but the vegetable plot completely flattened.